So addressing hormones in perimenopause before you lose them altogether is the key. Cancer rates increase later in life post-menopause. So if hormones cause cancer, then it would be more prevalent in women in their 20s and 30s rather than skyrocketing after 50. Welcome to week 2. I'm Elizabeth Katzman with Strong Choices, and we're going to be going over some hormone myths at the time of perimenopause and menopause. You may hear that everything will calm down. So this is one of the myths, is like it's a zone of chaos. Don't even bother. Don't even worry about testing. Wait until you're done with menopause and everything settles down and you'll be fine. Okay, you've got hot flashes and night sweats and all these things. It's a myth. I guess in theory it's true. Everything will calm down, but is everything fine? No, because you've already put yourself at risk for cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and you've lost bones. So addressing hormones in perimenopause before you lose them altogether is the key. Don't wait until you're done with your premenopausal life to think about HRT. You need to start educating yourself sooner rather than later in order to take control of the situation. Myth number 2, which is the huge one, is that hormone replacement causes breast cancer. This is from a study called the Women's Health Initiative. The average age, I believe, was 62 or 63 of the women participating in the study, starting hormones, over 10 years post menopause. And ideally, we want to start hormones within 10 years. So the population was older than it should have been, as well as they were given synthetic hormones, synthetic estrogen, and they were given progestins, which are not the same as progesterone. So the study was poorly done. It was in 2002, and it scared everyone. Everyone, said, stop your hormones immediately. Doctors that were trained around that time, and even doctors now, strongly believe that hormones cause cancer. And women think that too. So the earlier, the better to start educating yourself about how hormones are actually quite protective. And if we just use our common sense, we can see that cancer rates increase later in life post menopause. So if hormones cause cancer, then it would be more prevalent in women in their 20s and 30s rather than skyrocketing after 50s, after menopause. So that is a huge myth. Hot flashes and night sweats are the only signs of hormonal imbalances. So we have brain fog, joint pain, frozen shoulder, anxiety, mouth issues. It affects your gums. We have receptors for estrogen on every cell, every organ system in our body. Weight gain, especially, you haven't changed anything, haven't done anything differently, and you're beating yourself up, then a lot of women will start eating less and doing more cardio, only to find that that lowers their metabolic rate even more, and they're going to gain even more weight. So it becomes a very frustrating time for women based on the myth that it's like only hot flashes. And by the way, hot flashes are not benign. They're a sign that there's dysregulation in your brain, and it compromises your hippocampal volume. Lisa Mosconi has done a lot of amazing work in that area and has written some great books if you're interested. So the latest research shows that not all hormone therapies are created equal. There is a large difference between bioidentical and synthetic. Bioidentical or body identical is not just a marketing term. There's a difference in molecular structure, and there's a difference in the way our body responds. So a progestin can cause anxiety, whereas bioidentical progesterone prevents anxiety and is very calming. When HRT is done appropriately, it reduces risk of heart disease by up to 50%, preserves bone density and reduces fracture risks. It maintains your brain volume and potentially reduces Alzheimer's risk. So the research here is still new, but especially those people with ApoE4 genetics, which makes them more susceptible to Alzheimer's, they respond even better to HRT. It improves insulin sensitivity and reduces our risk for diabetes. And we know that Alzheimer's is also called type 3 diabetes. So it helps prevent Alzheimer's as it relates to glucose as well. And diabetes obviously sets us up for so many other issues. It's a morbidity. So if there's any sort of viruses or issues going on, you want to make sure that diabetes is not on the table for you. It also supports collagen production for healthier skin, hair, and nails. So our skin becomes thinner, dry, we lose elasticity. Um, I don't think a lot of people say, oh, well, it's just vanity. Well, it counts. It all matters. And we do age physically a tremendous amount between 40 and 50, and that is due to the loss of hormones. So, yet again, you want to catch it earlier because HRT is great at prevention, but it's not a cure. So, earlier rather than later. And it also just greatly improves our quality of life. We'll see anxiety raise a tremendous amount during perimenopause. So hormone replacement, bioidentically, properly done, helps with anxiety and sleep. So it is important that we advocate for proper hormone testing. This is something that we see often in social media these days as a group of very popular doctors advocating that we don't really need to test hormones because it's the zone of chaos and you can't catch them at the right time. That's a myth. Okay, so while it is true that perimenopause is a zone of chaos, it doesn't mean that you can't test hormones. It doesn't mean you can't get a picture. You also want to look at FSH levels, make sure that that's not going above a 25. Ideally, we want it below a 10. We also want to be doing fractionated lipid panels. So as estradiol declines, our lipids tend to increase as well as oxidative LDL. Because as we lose estradiol, we are more susceptible to oxidative stress. So not only do we want to look at estradiol and progesterone and DHEA, we also want to be looking at insulin, glucose, a fractionated lipid panel. We want to look at FSH. And we want to do a full thyroid panel. Dr. Amy Horniman has referred it as thyropause. So our thyroids become very vulnerable during perimenopause because we need progesterone to convert inactive T4 to active T3. And so as we lose our progesterone, which tends to be one of the first things to lose, we become vulnerable to having thyroid issues. So make sure you get a full thyroid panel. Traditional doctors just want to look at TSH. You need free T3, T4, reverse T3, and you need thyroid antibodies. So we need a fuller panel. Those are really the basic myths. And I talk largely about HRT, but we want to think about it all in a comprehensive, holistic approach. So we want to get a full panel of the variety of labs that I mentioned, and we want to focus on lifestyle, nutrition, supplementation, because HRT is, as my friends Kristen and Maria say, it's miraculous, but it's not a miracle. So it will help us, but we need to help it. So we have to be a healthy host. We need to prepare our body and make sure our livers and our guts and everything's functioning properly, but we need to become our own advocates because doctors are not trained in this. And even if they do seek out additional training, they're often getting it from the wrong places that are like the Menopause Society, which is, 10 to 20 years behind its time. And, I was educated at A4M, and you can also look at a practitioner or a physician who has gone through the Institute for Functional Medicine. So they need to have some kind of functional training because there are a lot of different ways to give HRT. And I'll do a whole nother YouTube on that. But it's important that you are your own advocate and that you are finding a practitioner who resonates with you. And as always, I like to encourage women to remember that they are, in fact, the ones in charge. We are hiring our doctors, our practitioners, and we can fire them too. We don't work for them. So a lot of women will show up to these appointments and being like, oh, I know my tests aren't as good as they should be, and maybe I eat a little more sugar. And there's an apologetic way about women when they come to see doctors. That often happens, but I would like to reframe that mindset, and encourage women to realize that we are in fact paying them for a service. And if they don't want to provide us with hormones or aren't educated in it, that's okay. It's just time to find someone else. You may want to go to your OBGYN because this is the person that you think would know about hormones, when in fact, most of them are not trained in hormones. So it requires a little bit of legwork. We don't necessarily have to fire all of our, doctors that we know and love and have been with for years, but it may be a time to hire someone new onto the team who understands hormone replacement better. Hope this helps.